Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Football Show brought to you by the good folks here at American Scouser TV. Happy to say that I am on my own this week as Matus, our normal co host, is fighting off the jet lag of his trip back from Paris. So we can't wait to have Matus back next week when we're going to dig in and dive deep into some of the nuanced transfer and changes that happen when it comes to fantasy football and the midweek matches. But let's start where we do every week by talking to you quickly about our American Scouser League. The American Scouser Cup is still going. You can manually join by clicking on Join Leagues. It is a private league. Type in the code that you see on the screen now, and you'll be able to get in on all the action. It's been a highly competitive and exciting start to our American Scouser Cup. None of our contributors, shockingly enough, are doing that well in the standings at the moment. But we are seeing that we have some really high scores. Our leader is at 211 points overall, had a great game week 3 with 57 points. Our third place person right now has got the big green arrow as well. Ian had a big week, might have been one of the biggest weeks in the entire Scouser Cup with 72 match week points. And that is a great haul no matter what the outcome is. But when it's week 3 and you're already upwards of 200 plus points, you're basically averaging between 65 and 70 points a week. That is going to put you in the top half of this game. And if you can continue that throughout the season, you'll be looking at a really strong finish in all of your mini leagues. But more importantly, even the overall rankings, which is, what most hardcore fantasy Premier League managers are ranking themselves up against the others and the peers out there across the world playing the match. So anywhere in the top 100,000 is really, really impressive. But coming out firing like these teams at the top of our table have is a really, really great way to do. As you can see, our good friend Fraudiola Farteta has taken a tumble down the table standings, as Jamie and I kind of thought that they might. So, unfortunately, without a couple chips played, we probably won't see the high comedy value of that team name appearing in our leaderboards anytime soon. So, for all the players up here, congratulations on your great start. If any of you would like to send us a comment and or maybe make an appearance on a future episode or show, we would love to have you on, hear about your team, and hear about some of the strategies that you are going to implement to make sure that your team stays on top. Well, we talked about the good and the great of game week 3 from the standpoint of the Scouser community with a score of 72. So I always like to look at the team of the week and identify where I might have been able to do things a little bit differently or even improve on that. So, team of the week, few automatics here jump right out at you. Um, no Liverpool players. I know it was a rough outing at United, but only one City player, only one Spurs player. And then the Arsenal players are Odegaard and Saliba, not exactly the norms of, Saka, Jesus, or even Gabriel Martinelli. And I think it's important to look at that not every week will the top 6 sides be the way that you forge yourself to high scores. And I think too often people look at the top 6 and try to fill their entire teams with players from there. And I know that right now I am definitely top heavy on top 6. And we're going to look at my side in a little bit, do what we always do, which is rehash my mistakes and talk more about some of the moves that I'm looking to make maybe this week and into the next couple weeks with the eye on the midweek matches and rotation risk starting to set in. I think that the consistent process of the template right now has been that you can get by having no bench and having enablers on your bench, whether it's the De Silvas and the Andres Pereiras, the Nico Williams, even down to like the Greenwoods and the Archers at the 4.5 level for a striker. I think that starts to become a dicey proposition as you start to get into the midweek matches, especially if you're playing a big at the back setup with lots of fullbacks. Center backs are a little bit more impervious to rotation. Other than Pep center backs, I think you can almost write in who the two starting center backs will be for most clubs throughout the Premier League. As a Liverpool supporter, we know it's going to be Van Dijk and someone. So maybe at this point, starting to look at a player like Virgil van Dijk, maybe a player that's nailed on, like Eric Dyer, even, they start to have a little bit more value because I think we'll see the Reece Jameses, Andrew Robertson, you know, especially Ivan Perisic. We're going to see there being a decent amount of rotation at those high flying wingback positions, especially for those at the bigger clubs that are still playing in commitments in Europe. So, from the match of the week last week, I think my big takeaway was the cheap route into Arsenal's defense at 4.5 million is really tough to pass up. I myself had Saliba in my team after making him my stud of the week during our first EPL show. I got cold feet and didn't want to go against Nico and overinvest. So I kept Nico against Everton, got a 1-pointer when I could have had 15 from Saliba after talking him up for 2 weeks on our Monday night podcast and the Premier League show that we run each week. So that's a classic maneuver for Galley. Overthinking transfers all along. My goal was to use 2 transfers in match week 3. I didn't use any in match week 2. Then I got cold feet and only did 1. I moved off of Andy Robertson. I brought in Reece James. Didn't work for me, obviously. I went big at the back and got absolutely nothing. And I think this is a prime example of why you have a balanced lineup and you need to make sure and start the right players. I have Sanchez sitting on my bench out of, I don't want to say fear, but I played the fixtures and I just felt that Brighton, as well as they'd been playing, might have a little bit more of a struggle. I thought West Ham would be a little better in front of their home supporters. And of course, I made the mistake that everyone does in assuming that a Brendan Rodgers side could defend and started Ward in between the sticks against the hapless Southampton, which they then proceeded to make look like world beaters as they allowed them to score 2 goals after taking a 1-0 lead. So my biggest regret on this sheet is probably not pulling the move off for Saliba and moving out Nico. And at the same time, you know, I felt like I should stick with Mason Mount. There's part of me that still feels like I started with Mason Mount because of the fixtures he had from game weeks 3 to 9. So jumping off him now does seem like a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. But I do plan to make some transfers this week. And most likely it will be Mount moving on. Part of the reason I moved off of Robbo in that matter was so I'd have a third Liverpool asset available with the intention of most likely going Mount to Diaz. I do think I'm going to deviate from that plan. As much as I love the Bournemouth fixture, I'm a little nervous about rotation in September at the Liverpool side up front. Even when Nunez comes back, Jota will be back hopefully within a few weeks. So there could be a little bit of rotation risk when the Champions League matches kick in 2 weeks. But more importantly than anything, the biggest piece for me is I really believe that right now, Kulusevski is the asset at Tottenham that everyone should own. I think that he has been the show-stopping performer of their front 3. Son does not look the same player. And for me, what Kulusevski is doing is highlighting his goal involvement and, more importantly, his goal threat. His XG numbers and big opportunities created per minute played is higher than any other player in the game. And at the same time, he offers a route into Spurs attack in the 8 million range. Conte probably will do some rotation, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him um, actually prioritize winning a trophy this season, whether it be a cup campaign, trying to make a deep run in the Champions League, because I think Conte is a serial winner. But more importantly than anything, I think Conte knows that he only has so many match winners. And I genuinely believe that Kulishevsky is one of those. So for me this week, I think Mount to Kulishevsky is an automatic. The question therein lies, do I trust Bailey? Um, do I upgrade Nico now or give him another week? I have to be honest. Forrest is fun to watch, and Nico's attacking returns at 4.1 have been unbelievable underlying statistics. But they're just that. They're still underlying statistics. And after watching them, I think they're going to leak goals throughout the entire campaign. The fact that they gave up such a poor goal to Everton in the 89th minute of a match that they were hanging on to steal 3 points on the road doesn't exactly instill much confidence that they can get clean sheets on the road. I still like Nico, and he very well may find his way on my side going forward, and I may decide to improve or upgrade in some other areas. But as of right now, I think it'll probably be the double transfer of Mount to Kulishevsky, a Nico to either Saliba or maybe even Zinchenko. Again, I need to really kind of think about this with Arsenal starting their Champions League campaign. Now, there are other moves I could make. There's an argument right now that at 13 million, Salah really isn't probably worth that investment. But I'm going to hold on a little longer, and I'm going to wait and see how that position gets taken up and what changes when Darwin comes back in 2 weeks. Because I do believe that Darwin Nunez offers a different level of attack through Liverpool and a more focal attack. One thing I am not doing is I am not jumping off of Trent, Reece James, or Cancelo. I think they are automatic must-haves along with Perisic at this point. Anyone who has seen Perisic play so far realizes he needs about 4 or 5 inches of space literally to get a world-class cross in. He has goal-scoring poachers in Son and especially Harry Kane, and he's on set piece duties, and he has a wand of a left and right foot. And if it wasn't for 2 offside traps that were very close, he would have been in on goal 3 different times in that match. So even coming off the bench, I think Perisic offers you an opportunity for attacking returns, even in a short period. And I think he's almost a must-have at 5.5. And you can kind of bury him as long as you have a playable bench. So that's going to bring me to, my frustration from last week. I don't know that I'll remove Sanchez until Brighton shows me that they don't have deficiency issues. I think Brighton is one of the better sides right now playing football across the board, both defensively and offensively. I'd like to see them have a little bit more of a goal threat, as I think it would help them actually be an even more solid and stable team at the back. But Sanchez is consistently in the bonus points. He's consistently gets save opportunities, even when he doesn't get clean sheets. So I think I'm probably just going to go set it and forget it with the Brighton keeper. And then, the more I watch Fulham, the more I realize they are going to leak some goals, but they are going to score. And Andreas, as much as it pains me to say this, he's basically involved in everything positive that they're doing right now. And the fact he's on set pieces, again, has a target-like striker in Mitrovic. I do think he'll chip in some goals. So at some point, I'm thinking about Andreas being more of a starter in my side and really enabling me to maybe improve, bring Greenwood up to, say, an Ivan Toney by taking a couple million off of one of my higher end midfielders and maybe starting to actually play with this 4-4-2 or a 5-2-3 type of formation and really load heavy because it seems like the striker is back between Jesus, Haaland, Kane, to a lesser extent, Toney. There's a few other really intriguing options as they get more minutes, like the big Italian striker at West Ham when they start to figure things out. But for this week, It's definitely Mason Mount to Kulishevsky. And from there, I'll weigh whether or not I roll over another transfer, make a second, or possibly do a small team construction for a -4, make 3 transfers, and really set myself up for the next 2 to 4 weeks. What Galleys Galacticos will not be doing is something that I see as arguably one of the most blatant and knee-jerk reactions I've ever seen. And that is the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold at 7.5 million has been sold by over 353,000 managers as of the recording of this episode. That is a staggering amount of knee jerk, in my opinion. Trent offers set pieces, direct free kicks. He's still creating opportunities and big opportunities that aren't being taken, to be fair. And he'll get his point striker back in the next couple of weeks, which will lead to more direct assists and hopefully goal involvement on the right-hand side for him. I do think that the transition to this new formation is tweaked him a little. I also think the fact that he's constantly under scrutiny for his defensive deficiencies is actually starting to play into his attacking role. And let's be totally real here. They haven't kept a clean sheet in 3 matches that on paper, many folks thought they would keep at least 2, if not all 3 of those matches and have clean sheets. But the value Trent brings at that price is just ludicrous. While we talk about other transfers out, Darwin makes sense because there's 2 more matches. Anyone who didn't get him out last week saw his price drop again. They're probably thinking that. Neto was the 5.5 million, pick du jour, the midfield enabler that allowed people to get to a De Bruyne, a Haaland, or even have Haaland and Kane. Neto has not hit the ground firing. Wolves look like they are going to struggle in front of net to create and score goals. And I just think the bloom came off that rose really early. On top of it, you have players at the 5.5 million spot, 5 to 5.5 million, like Bailey at Aston Villa having a good match last week and scoring again off the bench yesterday in the League Cup. And then you have, Martinelli already raising 500,000 in price, up to 6.4. So anyone who got on that train was there early. And then, of course, the young American Brendan Aronson scores his first goal, played a huge role in all of Leeds buildup, and has really started to build in and bed in to his side. Then you have the 2 high fives and low sixes in Rodrigo, who is the number 1 player transferred in. Big surprise. He goes 4 goals in 3 matches. I have taken the cheese on Rodrigo too many times. I've brought him in multiple times thinking it's a cheap way into Leeds attack, and it always burns me in the ass. So I'm going to stick away, even though I could afford to bring him in right now. I'm going to stick with Bailey because I believe the fact that I think Gerrard really wants him to be one of his front 3. And I think the fact that he rewarded what was hard work with a start. He creates the first goal last week, and then he brings him off the bench and he helps him secure a win with a goal in the League Cup. And for that, I think it's important. We all know that the League Cup and the FA Cup, Champions League matches, they don't feed into the Premier League points, but they do feed into the planning that many fantasy managers will utilize. So some of the best managers say they pay attention to the minutes played and people who start. Because what you're really looking for is if one of your bench players or one of your fringe players is starting in League Cup games against lower tier competition, if it's not David Moyes' team, there's a good chance that player is a second-rate player in that manager's eyes. We all know Moyes doesn't like to rotate, so he'll play the same guys and just run Jared Bowen into the ground, which is one more reason at an overpriced, inflated price of 8.5 million. Jared Bowen is not on my team, even though anyone who listens to the Monday Night podcast, has heard me say I love me some Jared Bowen. I think he has all the attributes to be a top player. And I think when West Ham is clicking, he is doing everything right. And unfortunately, when it's not working, he gets lost because his work rate in industry and the energy he puts in just doesn't show up on the team sheet. So if we look at some of the other ins, I've talked a little bit about the young Arsenal defender. I think at 4.5, maybe 4.6 now, he's almost a no-brainer in that price range, unless you really love Dunk and the Brighton defense. But with me having Sanchez already, I'm not going to double up. Trippier is intriguing to me. Another one of the was on my team 3/4 of the summer. I dropped him 15 minutes before the game went live, so you should have known that he was going to come out with abandon. We've all seen the free kick that he took in Matchweek 2. Most remember that free kick in the World Cup semifinal, which is arguably one of the better free kicks that has been taken in a high pressure situation in a long, long time. He's on set pieces. Newcastle has shown some more defensive stability than they have in prior years. I really think getting Nick Pope was an enormous win for them, not just because I think he's an improvement over Dubravka, but more importantly, I think Nick Pope offers stability and a leader at the back there. And I think that is something that Newcastle needed. And let's be honest, Newcastle is surprising people not just by their shored up defense, but they're surprising people with the way in which they're attacking sides. I mean, what they did to Manchester City last week was absolutely should be something they should be absolutely commended for, because it's not easy to play City and not just sit back and try to hit them on the counter. And St. Maximin was an absolute beast. And he also is another one. I'm a little shocked he's not on this list of top transfers in. I think it just has to do with how great Rodrigo, Perisic, and Trippier have looked. I'm sure he's somewhere in the 6 to 10 players of most commonly transferred player in this week. So we've talked about our transfers. We've talked a little bit about the players. Want to just quickly touch base on the captaincy choices for this week. And for me, it really comes down to 2 or 3 picks. I love the idea of captaining Mo at home against Bournemouth. I think that is a win-win for anyone, anytime you can find that player. I do worry a little bit um, just about how Liverpool looks as a whole, and whether or not they score 1 goal and win, 2 goals and win, or they throttle Bournemouth and kind of get their mojo back. I think captaining Salah this week could be a bit of a stretch, especially when Jesus is playing Fulham at home. If you have Gabriel Jesus, I would strongly recommend considering captaining him. Some of the other options, obviously, of course, Mo Salah. I think Haaland and Kane have to be considered for captain options. And if you're really, really looking for a punt, you could look at a player, maybe like a Perisic, if you really believe he's going to get the start after how well he played last week. Because even though it's on the road, I believe Tottenham will come out and be ready for Nottingham Forest. So for me, I think the ranking for captains this week would probably go Jesus 1, Salah 2, and Haaland 3. I know Palace has been, staunch defensively and looked really good through 3 matches, almost making that Arsenal win look even more impressive against Palace in the opening round of fixtures. But what I've seen with Haaland so far is he might only get 5 touches a match, but he's going to have 3 big opportunities to score goals. And some days that's going to be a blank or a cheeky assist like he got in one of his 2 touches, and other days that's going to be 3 or 4 goals. So for all those that think is now the time to sell Haaland, for me the answer to that is no. It might just be the time to ride Haaland through this so you can start to see a little bit of what Pep's going to do with the rotation concerns once the midweek matches start up. So for me, I think I'm going to captain Jesus, which ultimately means Mo Salah goes for 25 points. So I highly recommend everyone jump ship from me and probably captain Mo Salah, because listening to Galley will do only one thing: most likely give you something to complain about come Monday or Tuesday. Well, that'll wrap up our show for this week. Thank you to all of our viewers, our subscribers, and new folks to our weekly fantasy show. This is our version of Match Week 3 review, Match Week 4 preview. We'll be back next week, hopefully early in the week, as we have a short turnaround with the Tuesday and Wednesday fixtures. So, we're going to be looking at some rotation and some of the other nuances that Champions League football and midweek matches add to the overall landscape of fantasy EPL. So, for all of you out there listening, please remember to like, subscribe, and follow the channel as we'll be getting great additional Premier League and Liverpool centric coverage released throughout the weeks. Have a great week and hope all of your transfers haul and the players on your bench stay on your bench. Have a great week. Thanks for watching.